Now, the Supreme Court of Appeal has ruled that the Judicial Service Commission was wrong in finding Judge Nkola Motata guilty of misconduct instead of gross misconduct. This comes after organisation Freedom Under Law turned to the SCA to appeal a Gauteng High Court judgment dismissing its review application on the JSC's finding in Judge Motata's car accident while under the influence. The organisation previously launched an application in the Gauteng High Court in Johannesburg to review and set aside the JSC's decision of 10 October 2019, which found Judge Motata guilty of misconduct and imposed a fine of over 1 million rand to be paid to the South African Judicial Education Institute. The organisation contended that Motata's conduct constituted gross misconduct, which warranted his removal from office in terms of Section 177 of the Constitution. A judicial conduct tribunal found the judge guilty of gross misconduct and recommended to the JSC that he be referred to Parliament for a vote on his impeachment in terms of Section 177 of the Constitution. However, the JSC did not do so. In the lengthy judgment delivered yesterday, the SCA stated that Judge Motata's conduct was egregious, adding that for as long as he's entitled to be called Judge Motata, the judiciary continues to be stained in the eyes of the public, and that's a direct quote. This case stems from a drunk driving incident in 2007 when Motata drove his car into a house in Johannesburg. Now, Alison Tilley, who is the coordinator of Judges Matter, joins me now. Thanks so much for your time on SABC News this afternoon. Just give us your reaction to the judgment. Alison, a very good afternoon. Thanks so much for your time on SABC News this afternoon. Just talk to us about your reaction to that judgment.
Well, I think it is kind of disturbing that it's so much later. 17 years, I think it is, after the actual incident. It's really a good thing that we are hopefully reaching finality on the issue. It's true that Parliament has to vote on the question of impeachment, and we don't know whether Parliament will have enough time to do that before the end of this year, given the fact that they've got to wrap up ahead of the elections. But certainly a long time in coming.
All right, give us insight into how the JSC was able to override the finding of gross misconduct by the Judicial Tribunal.
So essentially, what happened was that they looked at the matter almost afresh and really decided that, and particularly in regard to the racism allegation, that the decision of the tribunal was not correct and that it did not, his words did not constitute racism. And I think that was one of the key things in dialing it back from gross misconduct. And that was then why their argument was that he could just pay a fine rather than going on to the impeachment process in the National Assembly.
All right, so the next step, as you've said, is to, if the JSC is to go to an impeachment process that should begin in Parliament. You have said that you don't know about time. What happens if the matter doesn't get dealt with by Parliament before the end of that term?
It would then be dealt with in the next term. We know that Parliament hasn't dealt with that impeachment before. So there's going to need to be a bit of a think about how to do it in terms of the process in Parliament. It does seem to me that it's unlikely that it would be dealt with in 2023. I think we're really, in all likelihood, looking at it being dealt with in 2024, unless for some reason Parliament decides to prioritise it.
So there's a concern about Judge Motata being viewed as a judge and the stain on the judiciary, as we've just quoted earlier on in this story. Just talk to me about that and the view of the judiciary from the public. It's such an old story. Does the fact that so much time has elapsed kind of lighten the story a little bit, or in your mind, is it still very urgent, something that needs to be dealt with going forward?
I'm not sure I could argue for urgency at this point. But what I would say is that one of the reasons that this case has taken so long is because there are a large number of the provisions in the legislation that were challenged by Judge Motata, and he also invoked his right to appeal a number of decisions. And I think on both grounds, what that's going to mean is that for cases that are coming now, and there are a couple coming now, that there are going to be a lot of issues that are resolved and that can't then be used to delay matters at this stage. So that's a helpful development. And then I think again with the proceedings in Parliament, again, if we can have a practice run and see how that works, again, that will smooth the way for the cases coming later. So I think it's really important that these matters are brought to finality, and I think it's really important that people see that we can hold our leadership in whatever sphere it is to account in terms of the rules that we all agreed on.
I mean, it's interesting that this case has taken so long. You've spoken about the challenges that are there, but it also speaks to one of the challenges with the South African legal system is that it takes so long, often, to resolve matters, and justice delayed is justice denied.
And it really does undermine people's confidence in the judiciary, and we know that from the survey data that we have. One of the things that we have seen is courts imposing personal costs orders in situations where respondents or defendants have behaved particularly badly. It may be that we really need to start thinking about costs orders in relation to lawyers, so that lawyers cannot recover their costs in relation to matters where they insist that their clients go through what really are hopeless appeals and procedures that just delay matters. Our courts are going to have to be a lot more proactive in case management and making sure that matters are dealt with expeditiously. We can't sustain these long delays in matters being dealt with. Judge Sharpe, however many years that's been, since 2008, it undermines people's confidence in the system, and that really that is very unhelpful.
Alison Tilley, Coordinator of Judges Matter, thanks so much for your time on SABC News this afternoon, just joining us there on that Judge Motata matter.